All right, Jeremy, welcome in on here. And for those who don't know us, yeah, Jeremy Pogue just finished his 13-week program with me doing the energy healing work. And yeah, he's just here today to talk about his journey doing the work and share about how who he is and just how the work has, yeah, just impacted his journey. So, Jeremy, would you just first just mind just giving a bit about just who you are and what you're about, what you've been doing the last, few years?
Yeah, and yeah, super pumped to be on here because before we started recording, I was saying like the last kind of 4, 5, 6 months have just been like extremely challenging, yet like just so filled with growth. And so I'm just really fortunate to have had you kind of along my side through all that too, and help me see a lot of things that I wasn't really aware of before, whether that's like healing like certain things from like my body. And we'll get into this too. I'm a very open book, and I love talking about this too because it's stuff I wish I knew much sooner in my journey. But for quick background and context, yeah, I have an online coaching business, and so I teach advertising, marketing, and stuff to online coaches, and they're really good at what they do, really good at what they coach on, but not so great at marketing and sales. And so that's where I come in. And yeah, over the last few years, I've done over 5 mil. My clients have done over 100 and worked with, yeah, hundreds and helped thousands of people make money online. It's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, so I'm one of these coaches, and that's actually how we originally met, and we'll get into that. But yeah, Jeremy's helped literally thousands of online coaches, business owners, entrepreneurs, just scale their business, and largely around different tactics he teach. And what's interesting today, right, is when we talk about some of the things that maybe most entrepreneurs maybe miss. It's part of the equation. It's something that Jeremy's been pretty much every week, day in and day out, diving into, which is actually the inner work, developing our own self. Um, so, Jeremy, I want to ask you just right off the bat. It's been, probably about 3.5 months since you started, and you've been doing this work. Just what have just been growth wise, just the biggest changes that you've seen in your own self?
Yeah, so for some context, I ran my company Summit Scale for like 3 years, and about this time last year, I started getting really burnt out. Like I hit like a record month, made more money than I ever had in my life, and I was like kind of apathetic. And I was like, what's going on? And so I went to one of my mentors, done over 100 mil personally in the space. And I was like, hey, dude, what's wrong with my brain? And he was like, he's like, all right, so first of all, totally normal. Second of all, like you're living the life you would have killed to have 3 years ago. Give yourself some permission to enjoy it. And then third, he's like, you're also being selfish. I was like, what? And he's like, you're just focused on, oh, poor you, like poor me. Why is my business not here yet? Why are my margins not up here? And all this kind of stuff. And he's like, start doing things for other people that don't benefit you at all. And so I launched a youth mentorship program for free, just 16 to 23-year-old entrepreneurs. And that's been really cool every second week to come over for a little mastermind and stake sesh. But then a few months after that, it like with the business side, it still didn't really get better. And so I realized I was trying to fill a void inside of me with external stuff, material success. And it's great to have that motivation to some degree because it gets you fired up and like it's a huge, powerful driver, but the flame doesn't last that long and eventually it burns out. And so back in August, I was with that same guy and he walked me through this guided meditation where I was basically like speaking to Jesus. And I like metaphorically handed him my business. And I was like, what should I do with my business? And he's like, strip it down and rebuild it. So I was on a Friday night, flew home from Nashville on the Saturday. On the Monday morning, I had a team call with everybody. And with my hands shaking below the camera on Zoom, I let everybody go, basically shut down the business and took a few months off. A week later, I also ended um, a 2 year relationship as well, and that was really tough too. And what was crazy is like our bodies are so connected with our energy and our spiritual side as well. And the external is just a reflection of what's going on internally. And so for 13 months prior to that, my hand had developed this like psoriasis, eczema thing where it was cracking, peeling, bleeding, like oozing, like pus, like it just absolutely disgusting and really sore. Like I could hardly open my hand or move it for 13 months. And I had no idea what was going on. And so, anyways, that's when you heard about that. and you reached out. You're like, hey man, heard something's going on with your hand. Like, let's chat. I was like, absolutely. And so we hopped on a call, and you helped me kind of realize that my hand was just a reflection of my heart, and that my masculine and feminine polarity balance was completely out of whack for the last 6, 7 years. I was just hardcore masculine, completely neglecting my feminine side of like recharging, rebalancing, nourishing, and recovery. And so I got super burnt out. And so after that, I kind of realized that I had a crazy experience on a mountain later that evening, and completely just like rebalance the energies, let go of all of that, like all the pressure on the masculine side, kind of gave myself permission and just like thanks, honestly, and just gratitude towards it. And then like apologize like the feminine side for neglecting her. And then the next day my hands started to clear up. No matter what I tried before, nothing happened. And then that was when I was like, oh, there's levels to this. And then from there we started working together one on one every single week for the last 13 weeks. And like literally right now it's completely healed. Like if I showed a photo of it, like it's actually disgusting. And it was crazy. And so to me, it's like, this is amazing, absolutely. But what's more important is that, again, it's just a reflection of what's going on inside. And so I had a lot of issues internally, a lot of stuff that was kind of all out of whack between the business, the relationship, and all that. And now I feel just so much clearer, so much like just recalibrated and rebalanced as a whole. And so since then, that was kind of August, September. I was like hardcore my masculine. And then I kind of went like explored the feminine side. I was like, let's like shut the business down, kind of retired for a couple months, built a new program to optimize for peace and profit and just not put so much like pressure on myself. And then relaunched it in December, basically doubled, tripled like my profit compared to the year before, which is cool. And then now I've just been in Costa Rica for the last month and here for another week or two, and just having an absolute blast and feeling like I'm like back to the center and balanced. And I feel like I just have such control and awareness of the energies and the polarity. And to now be able, like, now I'm aware and equipped with the tools that I need to A, identify when something's off, but also B, know how to fix it. And well, know who to come to help fix that as well. So yeah, man, it's been absolutely insane.
Well, that's an amazing overview. And thanks for sharing all of that. And let's dive more into the polarity because people might hear, okay, the masculine, the feminine. Well, I'm a man. Well, what's that mean? So regarding the masculine, right? It wasn't like there's anything bad about being the masculine energy. It's just that this gets into the work that we do, right? Is sometimes we get into more of an unhealthy masculine or a masculine that is a bit wounded or it's operating off of maybe old pain. And a lot of the work we do, right, is kind of going under the hood and seeing what that is and where that comes from. Could you talk a little bit about what some of the things that you did see that were under the hood and how that was kind of previously causing kind of just this, dire nut all or nothing kind of overworking of the masculine and having now gone through that work and kind of dropping more to a more healthy version, a balanced version of masculine. How you see that within yourself and even just as a reflection of the business and everything else?
Yeah, great question. So transparently, like the way I saw like the masculine was like, this is the only way to achieve what I want. And so I'm like I did 75 hard for over a year total, and just like training every like 6 days a week for like an hour or two every morning, working like 10 hours a day, like 6 days a week, and just like going all in. And I viewed the feminine kind of as like a distraction and like a nuisance in a sense, where I didn't really understand it. I didn't really respect it. I just kind of saw it as something that like took me away from my purpose and what I was doing with my work. And so that showed up in like my relationship as well, and with like how I treated that. And like, yeah. And so with that said, it's like, I feel like now that I've kind of rebalanced and explored both sides, I have so much appreciation and respect and love and admiration for that side, because I realize like every woman, every like feminine entity, I guess, outside of me is just a reflection of how I treat that part of myself. And so before I was kind of just like blinders on, kind of closed off and yeah, closed off towards that. Now I'm very like open and welcoming to receive that. And I feel like just as a man that tends to be a lot more masculine, I feel like I have such a renewed sense of purpose now where it's like the idea of having a woman in my life and being able to provide for her, protect her, and create space emotionally and energetically for her actually really excites me. Whereas before, it was like kind of just this thing that was like there that I didn't really understand and like kind of thought it was a bit of a distraction. And so what I realized too is like the feminine side, it's all just a reflection of what's going on inside. And so if you have that relationship towards that, then it's going to affect how you treat women, how you show up in relationships and all that kind of stuff too. And so there's a lot of stuff that I wish I learned much sooner. I'll say that, but I'm very grateful to have kind of explored that and learned from it all.
Yeah. So Jeremy, when I joined his program, it was called Summit Scale, and it was it's a bunch of online coaches, and he recently launched a new program called Peace and Profit. And I'd imagine that some of the work that we did had, maybe an impact on your perspective, your consciousness is kind of the word we use in this work, on the way you do things. And I know even your own program, right? You talk about now the map of consciousness and moving up in energy levels and moving past energy blocks and limiting beliefs. You talk a little bit about how your own changing consciousness from doing this kind of work and going within has impacted just your understanding of just even the business world and how you operate it and kind of what matters and what you're teaching now as part of even the curriculum and what yeah people now do in peace and profit.
Yeah. So pretty much like with Summit Scale is like one way or the highway. It's like let's burn the boats, go all in, scale the absolute living hell out of the business as fast as possible, and like just like reinvest everything and just like scale or die basically. And so that was a reflection of like what I was feeling inside because I'm like, that's all I wanted to do. But again, like that, it was kind of based off of like dark energy where it's just like it's like push rather than pull. And you can only do that for so long. And so for me, it got to the point where I did get super burnt out. And now what I'm seeing too is over the last few months, there's been, I can't even name how many clients that I helped get to 100, 150 grand a month from like 10. And now they're super burnt out and they're like starting to like pivot and like wanting to do like launch a different offer or like completely change things around, like restructure, rebuild, and all that too. So I see like the ripple effect of that all based on the energy that was driving me and how I launched it. And so now with Peace and Profit, even just in the name, it's so much different. It's like Summit Scale, which is just one way or the highway, whereas Peace and Profit is like, let's just design your life intentionally. So that way your business is a part of your life that serves your life, not something that you're a slave to. And that's where the balance comes in. And so if you think about polarity, like even just in the name, like peace represents the feminine side, profit represents the masculine side. And what's interesting is I use the plus sign in the middle, not like an and or anything like that. It's like the plus sign. And I don't know why I did that when I first came up with the name for the first couple of months. And I kind of explored that. I was like, oh, that represents the purpose. It's kind of like a cross in the middle, representing like the balancing beam of like purpose and fulfillment. And so when we can build a business that actually aligns with our values and our priorities at the moment, then that kind of shifts from that push energy to the pull energy. And you raise your consciousness, your energy levels as well from kind of like scarcity and just like extremely volatile fluctuations in your business to something that's a lot more consistent, stable, and predictable.
Very good answer. To talk about the dark energies is kind of, the survival energies, so to say, right? And a lot of the work we're doing behind the scenes, and now when I dive more into this, is, it's the healing and, different things that happen to our past or childhood trauma, and kind of working through those emotions, going through that and kind of looking under the hood. Could you talk a little bit about certain the things that you were able to see that maybe from the past or early on that you maybe weren't even aware of, but we're still kind of creating that push rather than that pull kind of energy. And maybe that overworking of the masculine rather than just being able to kind of flow and surrender and allowing things to happen. Yeah, just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and especially like as a result of doing the work with you and being aware of it now, where I'm like, if you think about it, it's like entrepreneurs, we're very driven, we're very motivated, and we want to be very successful, make a ton of money, and like just build wealth. It's like, okay, where does that come from? And so what I realized, like, especially with myself, it came from an internal sense of like unworthiness and like loneliness. And so it's like, because probably like, well, not probably, but like stemming from like sort of quote unquote traumas in the past that made us feel that way, then it's like, okay, like screw everyone else. I'm going to prove it to myself and the world that I am worthy. And so again, it's kind of dark energy that is the motivator there. And so you can see it like now that I'm aware of it and I can kind of like read people's energy, I see a lot of guys online. And even when I watch my old content, I see it in myself, like just in my eyes, where it's like my eyes and my voice, where it's like you can tell they're just trying to fill a void in themselves. They feel so much unworthiness and they're trying to just put a mask on it and trying to fill that void with fleeting material success rather than just self-acceptance and self-validation. And so, like, yeah, when I go back and watch my content over the last few years, it's like it's screaming at me now where I'm like, oh man, like, thank you for getting me here. But also, like, it's time to change things up a little bit, you know?
I think one of the greatest areas of growth I've seen in you, right? And the transition goes from, right, feeling that inner emptiness and feeling a lack to actually learning to, yeah, accept ourselves, to realize that we are not alone. We are with ourselves and that we're good enough as we are. But part of that also comes of, and that's a lot of the work we did is right, is just actually allowing ourselves to let go of what other people think. And that's one of the things that we worked on a lot and that I've seen as a huge change in you. And you're someone who, who's a public figure, who does YouTube, makes content, and his, job is to get his voice out there. But have seen you to go from, yeah, past patterns that were fixated on whatever everyone else cared to actually working through some shadows and just dropping into a greater, deeper authenticity of who you are and what you want to say. I even know, like during our sessions, we would joke, your voice went from here to here every single time, and it would show up in your physiology and just the way that you spoke. But yeah, if you could just talk a little bit about that, just even that transition from being so fixated on the outside, right? Which is where all of our survival energy is so focused to just being so way more centered and comfortable and grounded in just the essence of who you are.
Yeah. And speaking about the throat there too, like, yeah, I make content on Instagram and YouTube and stuff like that. But I felt like I was like blocked for a while during like that transition phase. And what's interesting is in my throat, it felt like there was like a frog in my throat at the same time as well, which is again like a direct physical manifestation of the energy block that I was feeling inside that prevented me from actually going out there and just hitting record and start yapping and post it. Right. And so it's crazy that our bodies is physically manifesting and they're screaming at us, telling us, hey, something's off here. And a lot of the times people just try to, yeah, mask the symptoms instead of going to the actual root cause of it and going inside, partly because they're just not aware that that's how things work. And like neither was I before. And so with that said, yeah, like we'd explore that. And what's interesting too is like maybe it's the masculine side of me and like the warrior where it's like if there's a problem, I want to attack it and kill it and fix it and annihilate it, right? Whereas with the energy side of things, it's very much so the opposite, where it's like, let's go there, let's acknowledge that it exists, that like there's certain emotions stuck in there. And rather than trying to fix them or attack them or kill them, accept them and really just experience them, let them just run their course and then let them go. And so that was a huge shift. And I've read a ton of books on this topic as well and read a few as we are working together too. But at the same time, like it's one thing to kind of do that, but it's another thing to actually like get the hands-on help to like the implementation. And that's what I was missing before. Because it's like theoretically I kind of understood a little bit of how things worked, maybe like 10%, and then like the remaining like 90% with like your help was just massive.
I was telling Jeremy this when he started that, he, his accomplishment, I think he read 48 books last year, right?
52, one a week.
52. Okay, right. Yeah. 52 books in a year. Yeah. And all sorts of topics, but particularly, yes, personal development, masculinity, energy, on a lot of the stuff that I teach. And I just told them that, it's really about implementation that's next. But let me ask you this, like, a lot of people might be hearing this for the first time. They're hearing energy work, spirituality, emotions. And how would you actually even describe like what it is that we do concretely to someone who just hasn't is just new to this like you were? How would you even describe it?
The way I kind of describe it is like kind of like a brain surgeon, where we just like crack open your head, figure out like yeah, like crack open your head, look at like your mind, and like you just hear like all the emotions, the energy, and stuff like that. And you're looking for just like little like dark areas that are just like blocks. And so all we're doing is just going in there, identifying them, seeing them, and then just kind of working on them a little bit to just untie the knots so that like things can just flow again. And so if you think about it too, like there's a leadership principle in business called the law of the lid, which basically means that the company will never outgrow the capacity of the leader. The leader has an invisible lid, an invisible ceiling that is like kind of dependent on like their experience, their skill set, but also like their beliefs. And so if there's a lid here, like we cannot grow past it. And so it's the exact same thing with like kind of the internal work, the energy side of things. It's like you can have all these crazy goals, but if you don't actually believe that you can do them, or if you have certain blocks, limiting beliefs, and you're just getting in your own way, you're never going to be able to raise your baseline of performance of your business, of your life, relationships, anything like that. And so it's just kind of like, yeah, I guess kind of like a mechanic as well. You're just taking apart the engine to figure out what all the broken pieces are, and then you're just kind of cleaning them up, getting the rust off of them, or just replace them entirely, put a new one in, oil it up, and then the engine runs clean. So that's kind of like the way I view it. It's just like we're just a surgeon identifying all these little hidden things that most of the time we're not conscious of or aware of, but are very much so there and affecting the way that we show up in our life.
You're a coach yourself to thousands of really top business owners and coaches, and maybe this is the first time they've even heard of something like this work. What could you say to people who are watching this? Yeah, like that were in your position. Like, what is the kind of benefits that they could get as all the coaches that you see that you've helped and are helping now? What do you think is like the main thing that they could get out of something like this, doing this kind of work?
Great question. So it's been interesting because as a marketing coach, like there's basically three types of offers. There's health, wealth, and relationships. And you've helped me with all three. But the problem is in Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets book, where he talks about this, he's like, only ever choose one. Because when you choose multiple, it like kind of dilutes your marketing message and your transformation is not as direct and clear. And so, like if we kind of break down each one of the three, though, it's like health directly with my hand. It was very unhealthy, and it was like I could hardly open it. I'd walk around just like kind of with like a closed fist almost because like it's on the inside, the outside, everything in between. It was like very sore. And so like the physical health was a massive thing. The relationship, kind of letting go of that and working on like seeing how I showed up, which caused a lot of conflict in that was massive for my healing journey with that. And then also with the business and like launching a completely new program and everything. There's a lot of like doubts, uncertainty, insecurity through that whole process as well. And so just kind of being able to really sit in that, identify what was actually going on and where it was coming from really helped me, yeah, let go of a lot of pressure and stress that I was just putting on myself and just made it so much more fun and enjoyable. And so like because it's such a broad array of like transformations in all areas, like it becomes difficult to kind of describe it, as you know, right? Where it's like, I guess the biggest thing to like a good principle is like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so how you show up in like how I showed up in my business was kind of the same way that I showed up in my relationships and with like my wealth and my finances as well. And also with my health. It was just like hardcore in the gym. My body got super stiff and sore and like I wasn't really stretching or like doing much like focus on like mobility and stretching and all that kind of stuff too. And so if you feel like out of balance, out of whack, and either stuck, unhappy, unfulfilled, it's really just bringing you back down, like back to the core, back to the center, and building a life that you feel like you don't need to escape from.
Really well said. I like the way you put that. Well, people might kind of ask, like, well, what actually is this work? How does it work? And a lot of the kind of core technique that we really just go through, right, is just learning to let go. And there's a lot of things we learn to let go, right? Particularly the emotions. But can you just talk about, what you, in your own experience, have been able to let go of, and how, yeah, whatever area, the health, the wealth, the relationships, you've been able to see that translate as a result of learning to go within, and learning to let go. Is there anything particular you just remember? Wow, I let go of that, and yeah, it just had this huge impact.
Yeah. I mean, we'll start with the business side. Like before, a lot of my self-worth validation came from how much money I made and how much success I had with the business. Now I couldn't care less. And it's so liberating and freeing because now I feel like I can operate from a place of abundance and creativity rather than scarcity and desperation. And so my content comes across much more authentically. I enjoy making it now, whereas before it was an absolute burden and I just didn't like it at all. And it's like it just shows up, that abundance, that creativity shows up everywhere else as well. And so I feel like I'm just a lot more like playful with life. And now I'm just with every component of my life, I'm just kind of like dancing with it and playing with it rather than like being so like serious and cutthroat. And it's just so much more fun, so much more enjoyable. And so that was a huge one. It was like the external validation from how much like external success I was creating. And it was kind of just like a like handcuffs that I put on myself, where it's like, oh, it was like an agreement that I made. It's like, oh, if I don't make that much money, and again, the goalposts always change. So it's like you can never break free of this, right? And it's just a story that you tell yourself, you're putting the handcuffs on yourself. But it's like, if I don't have material success and other people think that I'm successful, then I'm unworthy. And it's an agreement that is just it there's no way it can actually be healthy or positive in any sense. But we do that, our mind does that to then try to yeah, fill those voids inside of ourselves. And I think a good way to describe it is like I had a toolbox and the only tools I had in there was that.
Mm.
And so now I feel like I've added a lot more tools in my toolbox. Like I was trying to like drive a nail through the or drive a screw into some wood with like a hammer, right? And now it's like now I got a screwdriver and now it actually works and fits.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I want to talk about, right, is like, you know, some people, maybe call me a spiritual guide, spiritual coach, and a lot of this inner healing work, it does unfold as a spiritual journey. And the world of entrepreneurship, however you want to think about it, it's a spiritual journey. I think what some of the craziest things in this, especially in the beginning and throughout, that you would text me and we'd laugh, is just the amount of synchronicities that would happen, right? And I know you're someone who's, even from watching your own content before I met you, right? Just yeah, is tap into the world of synchronicities and just seeing things happen. Could you just talk a little bit or share whatever you want of just, as you start to awaken, just becoming more conscious and aware of, these sort of more divinity kind of miraculous things that are happening in your world as a reflection of everything that you're doing within.
Yeah, it's really interesting because kind of my journey with synchronicity started like 4-ish years ago. And before that, like I've read books about it, but I didn't really understand what it meant. And now it's like gotten to the point where like my life is like a movie, where it's like every day, just like the craziest coincidences happen. And I'm just like not surprised anymore. It's like I'm just like spawning stuff in. Like I talk about something, boom, there it is the next day. Like it's crazy. And like 5 years ago, I would have thought I was like full of it, even just kind of talking about it. And what I've realized though is that they don't always come. They're not always there. And I find that like I've gone through seasons where I feel like I'm getting zero signs. There's nothing coming up. But it's because I'm also out of alignment, out of whack. I'm trying to paddle upstream against the current rather than flowing with it. And so whenever I'm acting in alignment with kind of my higher self and the things that I know that deep down I should be doing and the path I should be walking, that's when everything starts flowing. And so it's a lot easier said than done to get there, of course. And again, I don't think I've fully cracked the formula yet, but to my kind of limited knowledge, that's kind of what I've gathered with that. And so basically, like the way I see them is just like whenever I see that kind of stuff, where it's like just crazy synchronicities that like you'd never expect that are just so like unrealistic to happen, they happen. I kind of take this as a sign from above that like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm just continue on, continue forward, go all in, and like this is what I'm here to do. And so, like even on this trip, I'm in Costa Rica. I was walking on the beach 2 weeks ago in Nosara, and some random dude came up to me, and he's like, "Yo, Jeremy, like Jeremy Pogue." I'm like, "Yeah," and we started talking for like 45 minutes. Anyway, this dude runs a massive coaching business, and we just like hit it off. Went to his place the next day for steaks, like great chats. And then I was like, "You need to meet my other buddy, Monty," and he runs like a big software company, also living in the same town in Costa Rica. And so the three of us went for lunch, and then like the similarities between the two of them was insane. They grew up in the same like neighborhood in London. They both spent time in like Kenya for a couple of years. They spent last Christmas in Thailand on the same random remote island. And then they both went to Kelowna, where I'm from, at the same time. And then now they're both in Costa Rica. And I was like, this is like, and there's so much more of that. They both have like Russian ex-girlfriends and like it's just so weird. And then so at this lunch, I was like, boys, we need to get like a villa together for like a week or two. And 2 weeks later, here we are. And it's just been so cool. From just randomly walking on the beach to now here, like living together for a couple weeks. It's been amazing just for like my growth and all of theirs as well. We're all helping each other out. Like there's three of us and we're helping each other out in such unique ways that not like none of us would have ever expected. And it's really, really cool.
That's a beautiful part about, letting go and seeing the transition, the journey that you're on, right? And for a lot of business guys, right, a business can seem like this kind of calculated, methodical thing where everything's measured and, it's a lot of control, a lot of mental control, and it's stressful. And the idea of letting go, really being let it, if you let things go, you can allow things in, and allowing if you want to call it the universe, God, to bring you things and to, create that kind of divine order and the divine people, and just really being able to trust that flow and whatever is laid, in front of you, in front of the path. What was that kind of transition like from, just kind of being in the Kelowna office and just measured and calculated to just, going to Costa Rica, letting loose and letting life take you a bit more?
I think in the past, I've been very much in need of control in pretty much every area of my life. And I realized at the end of the day, I could try as hard as I can to make something happen, but if it's out of alignment, it's either never going to happen or it's not going to happen to the degree that it could or should, or I'm just going to feel really shitty as I do it because again, it's going to be a lot harder than it should be and feel like you're kind of paddling upstream and you're just rowing really, really hard against the current. And so it's been a massive transition learning to kind of just, yeah, let go of that control and take a lot of the pressure off And as a result, it's very liberating because a lot of the, like, I mean, if you think about it, it's like stress and pressure, those are all just manifestations of stories that we tell ourselves in our head. Nobody creates that except for us. And there's like an event happens, it doesn't happen like nothing objectively happens to us. We just subjectively create our own response or reaction to that thing. And so the same thing can happen to multiple people, but each person can have a completely different response to it. And so I think a lot of the time, as like driven entrepreneurs, we can put a lot of stress and pressure on ourselves because ultimately, like I know sometimes it's when I thrive the most, when I'm like backs against the wall, all my boats are burned, and I've got nowhere to go but forward. But there's a big difference between like positive stress and pressure and negative. And then it's also like, okay, well, that could be an unhealthy perpetual cycle to get stuck in if for your entire life you're just reliant on shit hitting the fan to step up. And so if you can learn to just kind of let go and like flow with the current and you steer it, it's going to be a much easier journey. You're going to go a hell of a lot further, and it's going to be like you're actually going to enjoy it a lot more too.
I love that. One thing I want to ask you, kind of a separate topic is, again, you've been a coach to probably thousands of different people and different capacities. Um, and I assume you've probably spent a good amount of money on all sorts of masterminds and other coaches, and you're in the self-help world of coaches. Like you know this world very well. What is it maybe particularly that's different about the work that we do compared to some of the other things that you've been a part of?
So a lot of the time, like most people focus so much on the tactics and strategies. It's like the tangible stuff, the measurable stuff. But then at the end of the day, it's like a lot of times, like once you get to a certain level in business, like you kind of know all that stuff. And you kind of get over like the shiny object syndrome where it's like, oh, I just need this new funnel or that. It's like they all work. They all work. There's people out there making millions and millions of dollars with every single potential strategy and tactic you could ever use. And so the work that like we did was completely the opposite, where it's intangible and unmeasurable. But ultimately, like I have a lot of tools. I have a lot of experience. I know all of the things I can and should be doing to like maximize my growth, but I wasn't doing a lot of it because there were blocks. And so kind of going back to like that the brain surgeon example, there was like there were a lot of like blocks inside my mind preventing like good circulation of like energy or blood or neurons or whatever, right? Um, and so that was blocking me from actually doing the things I knew I could have and should have been doing. Like I never had a website in my life. I've never had an email list. I've never sent an email in my life until like when I launched the program like 2 months ago. And now like building like a proper marketing engine is like something I'm actually working on right now. Whereas before I kind of just completely disregarded it. And so I'm very well aware that like I've known how to do this stuff for 5, 6 years now, but I just never did it. And so I think subconsciously I was sabotaging myself and putting a cap and a limit on my growth as a result of a lot of the blocks that were going on inside.
Yeah. And it's talking about the blocks, right? And again, you work with so many different entrepreneurs every day. What do you think the biggest benefit of entrepreneurs doing inner work, this kind of work would be for them? Both the guys that, they're trying to get to 100K a month, and the guys that have surpassed that, tenfold, and they're just trying to find something else. What do you think that would be the greatest benefit to them?
At the end of the day, as humans, we are very focused on and motivated and fulfilled by growth. And so chances are, at least for myself, I felt like I wasn't growing. I felt like I was stuck. And so I think the biggest thing is like you help people get unstuck, whether that's stuck in their business, stuck at a certain income level, revenue level, wealth level, like with investments, net worth and stuff like that, or stuck in relationships, same cycles of chaos and fighting and all that kind of stuff, or same cycles of like dating the same kind of people, because all that stuff is just a materialized manifestation of what's going on inside. And so if we don't work on what's inside and we don't fix that and change that, or let go of certain blocks and clear stuff up, then we're just going to get more of the same on the outside. And so it really just comes back down to that. It's like as above, so below. And so if we want to change the above, the things above the surface, we had to go first underground and figure out like and sort out the roots. So that way our tree can grow really big and healthily. But if the roots are blocked, if you have a really tiny little flower pot, then you're not going to have a very big plant, right? But if you like completely just keep putting in bigger and bigger pots, then eventually in the grass and then like with no rocks around, very fertile soil, then you're going to build it. You're going to grow a massive tree that's going to be unshakable and unbreakable and just bear so much fruit for years and years to come.
That's an amazing example. For people who, again, who've maybe not even done this work before, if you describe like even tangibly or experientially what it is like to let go of a block, like what's actually happening, like in a session, like what's that
Sure.
even?
Sure. So basically, it's like scanning our body to find where there's feelings and emotions of shame, guilt, unworthiness, and then digging even deeper to find the root cause of that and just exploring with it, sitting in that and actually feeling and experiencing those emotions. Because a lot of times we either like suppress or just, yeah, push away, ignore, and kind of just like try to like hammer through all these emotions that we feel and we store them. Our body stores them inside. It keeps the score of all of the emotional experiences that we have. And so the buildup of that energy causes certain things. Like, so for example, like back to my throat. And within that, there was a lot of like emotions and like just certain beliefs and fears about like, oh, well, like who even cares what I talk about? Right. Like, what if I make content and like nobody watches it or nothing happens or nobody like really engages with it or doesn't do anything. Right. And so I just like didn't make content. And then I had a frog in my throat, and I'd every like 5, 10 seconds, I feel like I need to like cough and like clear it up, but it never went. And so in the sessions, what we would do is like I'd like close my eyes, kind of get into like a guided meditation, and I just like bring my consciousness down into my throat and just kind of to me it was like kind of like a cave diver almost, where it's like or just a guy in a cave like with a flashlight going in there and just shining light all over the cave to see all the dark, toxic, negative energy in there and just like being aware of it. And then just like when my light hits it, it all just dissipates and kind of evaporates. And so then from there, like my voice would completely drop. It would get much deeper, much clearer, and I wouldn't have that frog in my throat anymore. And then I'd feel a lot more confident and excited to make content. And on a very tangible, measurable level, too, I think this is going to be really good to ground it. Ever since kind of like starting that and then actually making content from an authentic and genuine place, I've gotten and my average view count now on Instagram is like at least 5 to 10 times higher than it was before for the last 3 years prior, or four actually. And some of them even like, yeah, like 100x almost. And it's pretty crazy. Not 100x, sorry. Like, yeah, like 10 to 20. Um, without even really trying.
That's the most amazing thing. And I got one kind of more category of questioning, and then we'll wrap it up because I will respect your time. But I think what's super interesting that people find about doing energy work is as we let go of all this, this past trauma and, thought patterns, negativity, is we just become more attractive. I remember even you telling me, like women are checking you out and just, like just more than usual and having these experiences. And yeah, just what would you say about just experiencing that? It's just, yeah, just becoming more you and authentic, but at the same time, it's lending itself to you're more magnetic. People feel it.
Yeah. Well, first thing I'll say is a good problem to have. And and yeah, like it's interesting too, like going super deep here. It's like growing up, I always had a hard time with women. Like I was like kind of like shorter, tubby, and just like didn't really have much going on. And so that created a sense of unworthiness and like kind of loneliness and a perspective towards women. And so as I grew up, then like I started to hit the gym, get in shape, and like over the last few years, build a business, achieve wealth and material success, even like status, I guess, on Instagram and social media and stuff. And so now like I'm getting like I've never had more hot inbound leads. Let's just put it that way. And so there's a lot of opportunity and there's abundance. And so that's just a reflection again of me letting go of that unworthiness and truly stepping into the identity that I actually have created and the reality of it instead of continuing to believe a story that I used to tell myself 10 years ago that's been affecting all of my relationships. And even outside of relationships, like also affecting how, like, yeah, just like seeking validation from women, talking to them all the time, and just like kind of wasting a lot of time, if I'm being honest with you. And just like, yeah, chasing instead of attracting. And so when you do this kind of stuff, you end up shifting from that push energy where you're chasing all the time to pull where you're attracting and people naturally come into your life. I think it's just a reflection of raising your level of energy and your and consciousness because if you're operating from a very low place, then you're not very magnetic, you're not very attractive. But when you operate like you're vibrating high, then you attract it. And another analogy, my brain likes to work in analogies and diagrams and visuals as you know. But like Newton has laws of like I think it's called like Newton's law of gravitational pull, which basically means if you think about like a planet, the bigger the mass of the object, the stronger the gravitational pull. And so if you view like your energy and your consciousness as like a ball, if it's really small and you're kind of just like hiding and nervous and fearful, shameful, guilty, like it's very small and like maybe you don't make eye contact with people, you kind of slouch a little bit, your body language is just closed off, you're not going to attract much at all because you don't have strong pull. But then when you live like open and abundant and radiant, then like the mass of your planet is just growing and growing and growing exponentially, then like you can't help but pull everything into you. And like things just happen. Business opportunities, clients, women, like everything just like money just starts flowing to you when you're completely and the cool thing is like at that point too, you kind of become detached from it. And then that's when everything happens, when you release the importance and the need and the desperation around it.
Perfectly well said. And the last kind of category I want to ask you about, particularly because, yeah, you coach younger men and, your youth mentorship program and a lot of the work we do around energy and healing, right? Letting go of these old traumas, when we were boys or you're women, young girls, right? Is we just naturally, as a byproduct of letting go of those blocks, we can grow like the tree or the flower, like you said. We just step more into our own masculinity naturally. Can you just talk a little bit, you did about the polarity, about just what it's like to just step more into your own masculine, your healthy masculine, the real masculine you, as a result of, yeah, letting go of those childhood traumas and just moving past all that.
I feel like the biggest thing for me has just been really stepping into a newly refreshed and found level of purpose. And so before I was very selfish. That's all I was really focused on. And so it was like, I want to make money so I can buy these cool things I've wanted for a long time, partly because of just because I wanted them, want to prove it to myself, but also because there's like material status and all that kind of stuff too, to fill a void of unworthiness. And so now it's completely shifted to the point where I'm like, it's not about me anymore. It's about the impact I can make. Literally just before this, like 5 minutes before hopping on with you today, I just made an Instagram reel talking about like how everyone in the space are just a bunch of fucking idiots and it's time to come back. Like kind of took the last 4, 5, 6 months off. I'm like, daddy's home. It's time to be the hero that Gotham needs and deserves. And so I feel just a much more renewed sense of masculine purpose and drive and like a vision and a mission there. But then also on the other side, I have my in-person youth mentorship every second Tuesday, but I've gotten so many DMs from other young men asking how they can be a part of it, but they're not local to Kelowna, which is not a big town. And so one thing I'm going to be doing, I'm saying this kind of publicly for the first time, is launching a virtual like young entrepreneur mentorship program as well. And I feel just so called towards that because I remember back when I was, yeah, kind of on the come up, there was nothing. I had no support, no guidance, no one to really look up to that wasn't like 40, 50, 60 years old. And so I feel like I'm 28. I feel like I look like I'm 21. And so I feel like I resonate and relate really easily to a lot of these younger guys. And so I want to build and create a container for like basically helping boys become men and giving them the guidance, the lessons, the skills, the tools that I wish I had. And so I feel so called towards that as just the next level of my purpose. And it's so exciting, like thinking about it. I get fired up. And so gonna be launching that very soon. It's gonna be completely separate, kind of just like a little side quest, passion project and whatnot. But I think it's just really, really excited. So between that and then actually trying to like grow my other business again, it's really fun. And then so that's kind of like the business side. From the relationship side, like I get really, really excited about the thought of like meeting my future wife, taking care of her, giving her the masculine space and container and everything that she's been praying for, and basically becoming the man that she's waiting for and praying for right now. And whereas before, again, I kind of saw women in relationships as just kind of like this, I don't know, this thing that's like kind of distracting almost. And I kind of just, yeah, not have, sometimes not have the best intentions and whatnot. Whereas now I'm like, I think a good way to describe this is before I was kind of looking for, searching for like freedom and like optionality almost. Whereas now I'm looking for like depth and I see the level of freedom that comes with that,
Mm.
where it's completely reversed. I'm like, there's actually so much, it's actually so much better to go super deep with one person than it is to just go really shallow with a lot.
It's a paradox. My dad always told me, the moment I felt free is the moment I married your mother. And it's like, it's, you don't
Wow.
have to, they don't have all the stress and the worry about, finding all these girls. You're done. But yeah. And anyway, man, I'm super excited about, everything that you have ahead of you, the youth program, and new business ahead of you, for you finding the one and all that comes as a result of doing the inner work. And it is work. I don't hide that. And it's hard and you put it in, and it takes a level of consciousness and work to move through this stuff to grow, but you did it. So I'm very proud of you, man. And I just want to kind of wrap up here, respect your time. But there's a lot of people that are probably gonna be watching this, probably a lot of different entrepreneurs, people like you said that maybe they're feeling stuck in their life. Maybe it's in their business and they're capped, or they're not capped and they just feel capped in their own happiness or their relationships. Is there any just kind of last words of wisdom or advice you could give to people watching this, just wanting to improve their lives and looking at this kind of work as a source of yeah, a solution for them?
Yeah, the big thing for me, and you know this, is I was putting it off for a long time because I didn't really understand like what it really was or how it could help me until I got on a call with you and then actually experienced it for myself. And so the biggest thing is like if you're not 100% completely fully satisfied and fulfilled with every aspect of your life, then like get on a call with this man and let him help you identify the blocks that you do have and then work with you to unravel and untie those knots that are keeping you stuck. And so for me, it was like, yeah, my hand was screaming at me, but even with that, I was just like kind of ignorant to it. And I didn't really know what my problems were. I was like problem unaware. I just knew I had this hand thing and I had a really strong hunch that it was spiritual and not necessarily physical. But that's also because I've dove pretty deep into that world as well. And so, like, yeah, if there's any part of you that feels stuck or just like unfulfilled, unhappy, you've been trying and just slaving away, grinding away at work, relationships, and you just haven't fully attracted what you actually desire and what you want, then like get on a call with Madison and let him help you because I was stubborn for a while and it took a lot of screaming in my face, my body yelling at me to finally do that. and then realize the impact and the power of it. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you, Madison. It's been absolutely life changing and very, very powerful.
I appreciate it, man. And we talked about this a lot, right? But I love you, and it's something we open up to. So, yeah, love you from the bottom of my heart, and super happy about all the work that we've done together. I know you got a big journey ahead of you that you're going to take the tools and the lessons and all the growth that you've had from, yeah, the last 3 months and have that, yeah, as a jumping board for everything else you do in your life and personal life. So I'm looking forward to it, and maybe we'll even have some updates in the video once, yeah, some of that stuff bleeds in. So anyway, Jeremy, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And I hope all those of you are watching, yeah, just found it impactful and then helped to, better understand the kind of work that we do and how it can affect your life. So thank you, Jeremy. And yeah, we'll talk soon, brother.
Thanks, Madison. Love you, brother.